Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions on faith and life, and I do my best to give a biblical perspective. Let's jump into today's question. Is it possible for two Christians to be in an unequally yoked relationship? What a great question. If you're not familiar with this sort of terminology or quite understand what the question is saying, in 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14, Paul gives an instruction about not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. The picture he's using there is from agriculture, where two animals would be yoked together in order to be able to pull a cart or to plow or pull a stagecoach or something like that together. And the point that he's making is that when a stronger animal is yoked to a weaker animal, it doesn't work out. They're pulling against each other and they're unable to work together to achieve what they're supposed to be doing. And so what Paul's saying, he's taking that analogy and he's saying that if you are unequally yoked in faith, a believer with a non-believer, then it's not to say you can't have a good relationship, but that your values, your faith is going to bring you into conflict at some point with the non-believing person. And if it doesn't, then I guess it begs a question about what you really believe and are you living your faith, because the values of this world are contrary to the values of God's kingdom. The demands of God, what the requirements of God when it comes to living out our faith will always bring us in some type of conflict with those who do not share our faith. And that's why he talks about not being unequally yoked, because it will bring us down. The non-Christian will say, oh, but do you need to do this today? Do you need to go to church? Or, really, do we need to give that amount of money? And it begin to weigh us down, and it'll rob us of our ability to be everything that God calls us to be. That's why he says, don't be unequally yoked to a non-believer. So the question is, can two Christians be unequally yoked? And I guess I would want to say that uneven faith is uneven, even whether it's between a Christian and non-Christian or two Christians. If the faith is not even, then it's not going to work. We're not talking about simply going to church or reading the Bible and doing that sort of stuff together. We're talking about fundamentally the commitment to faith, the maturity, all of those sorts of things. You see, our primary relationship in marriage is not with our spouse, but with Christ. And if we're not equally yoked as Christians, if we don't want the same things in relation to faith, we don't want to pursue the same things when it comes to God's kingdom and living the type of life that the scriptures talk about and seeking to put God first in all things, then inevitably that's going to create tension, and instead of pulling together for the common purpose, we're going to end up pulling in different directions. And so I think, yes, it's possible for two Christians to be unequally yoked. I think that it's possible for two Christians to love each other, to believe in God, but the commitment in their faith, all of those sorts of things, is such that they're not able to work together, to pull together, and one will end up creating conflict in the life of the other. Because, as I said, our primary relationship is not with our spouse, but with Christ. Like in my own marriage, I'm very aware that as much as my wife loves me and as much as I want to be number one in her life, I'm always going to be number two behind Christ. And so I'm never going to try and usurp that. I'm never going to try and get in the way of that. Likewise, my wife understands that she's number two in my life, that she's always going to come behind God. It doesn't mean to say that I neglect her or treat her in some way as second best. What it means is that my primary relationship is with God, and her primary relationship with God is, so we want the best for one another in relation to that. So it doesn't mean to say we're always going to agree, but it means that when we have a difference, we're going to pray, we're going to talk it through, and we're going to come to a point of agreement that in ways that promote that primary relationship and doesn't sort of cause one to have to compromise in any shape, way, or form in regards to that. Whereas if we were unequally yoked, one of us would be saying, well, hey, what about me? And there'll be conflict. So yeah, if you take the example of Paul's yoke in 2 Corinthians, and uneven faith is still uneven, then two Christians can be unequally yoked. I'm sure that you have a view on that. Why not post your comments your thoughts in the comments below? I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, that's my view. As always, you can ask questions on Faith and Life using on slido.com. Use the hashtag ALC23. I'd love to hear from you. But that's it for now. Until next time, God bless.